Hey y'all, it's your girl K-Dub, for real. It's just some real talk that I need to get off my chest right now. And ultimately, I feel like we as black people in America have had to learn to function in the dysfunction. And this is on my heart right now because I was just driving down the street and I saw a black man get pulled over by the police. He was handcuffing him as I was driving by. And I'm like, dang, what did he do? Did he do something? I don't know. But what I do know is he's being handcuffed right now. And I know it can end any kind of way. It could end in death. It could very much end in death. Philando Castile. Okay, Sandra Bland. Just from a traffic stop. So, and there are numerous other numbers of people who have been killed by the police in recent times. But we have had to learn to function in the dysfunction. And I'm reminded of a conversation I had with my little brother. He said, I had told him, like, there was a guy in the neighborhood who I saw in the back of the police car handcuffed. The police were searching his car. And I told my brother, like, he's on his way to jail. My brother's like, what do you do? I said, I don't know. And I explained to him what I saw. He was like, that don't mean he's on his way to jail. I was like, what you mean? He said, I get pulled out of my car and put into the back of the police car handcuffed. And they search my car all the time. He said, he's like, I get really mad when I'm on my way to work. I can be in a shirt and tie on my way to work. They don't care. They pull me over. They handcuff me, put me in the back of the police car, search my car, don't find anything, let me go. And then he goes on his way to work. That's not something someone should experience or even build up a tolerance for. But we've had to build up a tolerance for resiliency, what they like to call it. And yes, we're very resilient people, but we shouldn't have to be. Not in this way. You know, and I'm thinking about, like, I'm reading this book right now. Never Caught by Ona Judge by Erica Armstrong Dunbar. And she's a black lady who wrote this book about one of the ladies who was a slave in George Washington's household. She was actually in the bloodline of the folks who were on Martha Washington, on the Custis side, on her first husband's side. So she didn't belong to George Washington. She belonged to his wife. But when I start thinking about slavery, and y'all know I've been studying this since I was 5 years old, since I was in kindergarten. But when I look at that, when I look at slavery, we had to build a resiliency for some stuff that we shouldn't have had to. Seeing people beaten, seeing people lynched, seeing people hung from trees, seeing people shot and killed, seeing people get their foot chopped off for running away. You know, seeing people who, are free being brought back into slavery, sold into slavery, 12 years a slave. You know, we've had to build up some resiliency, seeing our children being sold away. Okay, being sold away from our husbands and wives, being sold away from our parents and grandparents. Okay, even if not sold away, separated. Because I went to Mount Vernon summer 2018, summer 2018. I went to Mount Vernon. They talked about, they have 5 farms on that plantation. And George Washington would keep the folks, families, separated on different plantations, on different farms within the plantation, to make sure that they didn't run away. So, like, mom could be on this farm, dad could be on that farm, kids could be on a different farm, because there was like, oh, we want to make sure they don't run away. And so, like, if one would have to go back and go from one farm to another farm and go get other family members, they wouldn't run away together. So even if they were on the same plantation, it was rare that I would even see that relative being on a major plantation like that. You know, and so I just think about all the trauma that we experience, and we don't even look at it as trauma anymore. We sometimes don't even realize we've been traumatized. But the resiliency that we've built is a response to the trauma. Like, our bodies are responding by trying to protect themselves by repressing oftentimes what we're feeling and seeing so that we don't feel it. This guy that I looked at who just got handcuffed looks unfazed by it. And I was like, I wonder how many times he's had to endure that. Even if he was innocent. How many times? His face looked plain as I drove past him. I'm sure the first time it was very traumatizing. I know the first time I ever get handcuffed, if it ever happens, hope it doesn't happen, but it's going to be really traumatizing. I've never experienced that before. I don't want to ever have to experience it. I also don't want my children experiencing that. I don't want my grandchildren experiencing that. But the reality is, here we're black people in America. And I'm going to end on this note, but I had a passenger the other day who was a white man, and he was breaking down to me white privilege. His recognition of his white privilege. And he said he worked with these two black guys, and they were on their way home from work, all of them. And the police pulled them over, handcuffed the two black guys, and took them into jail as suspects in a crime. Some store had been robbed or something. He said that the police officer said that they fit the description. He was like, what kind of description is it? Because one of them looked like Kevin Hart and one of them looked like Shaquille O'Neal. They can't both fit the description unless the only description is that they were African American males. You should be able to distinguish between Shaq and Kevin Hart. So, but they don't have to. And yes, it's traumatizing to us. And I was just okay, one more thing. I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna end. But one of my friends had posted on Facebook and said a meme talking about with a picture of Donald Trump and some black athletes, Don King, Muhammad Ali, and Jesse Jackson were in the picture, and it said that Donald Trump didn't become a racist until he got elected president. And I said that's not true. When you look at the Central Park exonerated five, okay? The exonerated five. He took out full-page ads in the paper asking for their death. Children who we now know were clearly set up. And were innocent. Had not even raped this woman. Did this man go out and apologize and say, you know what, I was wrong? No, because he didn't have to. But these babies were traumatized. They had to build some resiliency. They're trying to live now with the memories of what they experienced in jail and in prison. We shouldn't have to go through that, especially in a country that we built. Was built on the backs of my ancestors. But I'm still fighting for equality. We were supposed to be fighting for equality back with the American Revolution, 1700s. They said that all men were created equal in the 1700s. Still fighting for equality. And so I just had to get that off my chest. I'm glad that we can be resilient. I'm glad that we can function in the dysfunction. But I hope that the end of a need to function in the dysfunction is on its way.